Hi, I'm Ryan with BoxOnTheRocks, and it's a really exciting week in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area because we've got the big game, we've got the Waste Management Open, and most importantly, we've got the BoxOnTheRocks February kit, which is the Mule Mania. The Mule Mania is going to have a Candied Moscow Mule, it's going to have a Tropical Mule, as well as the Sparkling Mocktail Mule. I'd also like to introduce Eddie. He's our barman here. And he is going to give us a little bit of history on the Moscow Mule and where it got its name from, why we use the mug, and he would know because he's lived it, all of it, history.
Ever since the late 30s.
Because he's old.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. How's everyone doing today? The Moscow Mule is a great cocktail that has an amazing story. And although it's really taken the cocktail world by storm in the last 7 years, it's actually about 75, 80 years old, starting in the late 30s and early 40s.
So why do we call it the Moscow Mule?
Well, the Moscow Mule comes from, obviously, the spirit that we use, vodka. It comes from Moscow, or in general, Russia, unless you're Polish, and then you insist that it comes from Poland, right?
I've never heard of a Polish mule.
I've never heard of Polish Mule either. But hey, Ryan, why don't you show us what's in the box and we'll tell the story of the Moscow Mule.
All right. First things first, we've got the ginger ale infused syrup, and we're actually going to be making our own ginger beer with this kit instead of using canned ginger beer. So it's not going to be fermented like a traditional ginger beer, but we're going to make our own, and you'll like it. It's delicious.
I got to tell you, Real product is amazing. They use real ginger root. The sugar content is on point, and it's going to be great when we make our own meals.
All right, next we've got our club soda by Q Drinks. So we're going to be mixing that in the club soda.
Q sodas are out of Brooklyn, New York, and they do a fantastic job. They have sodas and different types of mixers, grapefruit mixer, as well as different types of vodka.
Next we've got the Q Drinks Hibiscus Ginger Beer. Then we've got our real lime juice.
Lime juice is really important when it comes to a Moscow Mule. Generally, ginger beer has a very high Brix level. It's very sweet. So what we want to do is we want to balance a little bit with the lime juice.
Next thing we've got is the Monin Mango Syrup.
We thought it'd be fun to have a little bit of a twist on the Moscow Mule. Tropical it up a little bit, and so we have some mango syrup here to need to do just that.
All right, we've got our citrus spikes. These are freeze-dried limes and a metal straw up here.
These are really fun for garnish, and I tell you what, it decorates goes against the copper mug really nicely. And if you still have some more, you can always put it in your beer, which I really recommend.
All right, next we've got some candied ginger chews here. These are the candied part of the Moscow Mule in this recipe. And lastly, we've got the copper mug, which is maybe besides the ginger beer, the most important part of a mule. Is it true that we use a copper mug because of some dust-covered inventory sitting in a back room somewhere?
Well, there's a couple of reasons why you have a copper mug. One of the more famous reasons is the idea that Jack Morgan, who was owner of the Cock and Bull Tavern in Los Angeles, had a girlfriend, and she inherited a copper goods manufacturing company. For some reason, they just had an excess of copper mugs, and so she decided to give it to Jack Morgan.
Okay, so what spirit are we going to be using in the Moscow Mule?
Well, we're going to use the original spirit, Smirnoff vodka. James Martin of the Heidman Corporation actually bought the rights from Petrov Smirnoff, who was one of the main vodka czars in Russia when it came to vodka. When James Martin first got it, it's important to understand that vodka was not necessarily needed behind a bar, or at least it was thought. It was really kind of an obscure spirit. So what James Martin did in order to sell the vodka better is he went to his buddy Jack Morgan, who was trying to sell his own proprietary blend of ginger beer. The two got together with Jack Morgan's girlfriend, and the birth of the Moscow Mule.
The rest is history. Do you know why they call it a mule?
Not totally sure, but the problem with drinking history is that everybody's been drinking. So
nobody remembers, right?
Right. But willing to bet it has something to do with that. It gives you a nice kick. How about that?
Kicks like a mule.
Very good. You gonna make me a mule?
Let's do it.
All right.
Candied Moscow Mule. Fill a mule mug with ice. Add the Smirnoff vodka, real lime, lime juice, and Royale ginger puree to your mule mug. Top with Q Club soda and stir with the metal straw. Garnish with 1 dehydrated lime and 1 candied ginger. Dig this! Fun Moscow Mule factoids. The Moscow Mule is believed to have originated in the United States in the 1940s. John G. Martin is accredited as the man who popularized vodka in the U.S. He bought a struggling vodka company in 1939 when no one was drinking vodka. Some are now calling the Moscow Mule the Kiev Mule, mostly to make it clear what side they're on, Russia or Ukraine. The average Moscow Mule is fairly tame when it comes to ABV. If you pour an 80 proof vodka with 4 ounces of ginger beer, the alcohol content is just 11%, about the equivalent to the average glass of wine. Tropical Mule, which is going to be using the mango syrup to give it a little bit of a different flavor, which, by the way, if you run out of this syrup or you have some syrups from the kits before and you want to experiment a little bit, this is a perfect time to do that. We're just giving you a little bit of a base so that you can try a different flavored mule. And Moscow mules are really good with experimenting, even if you don't have vodka in the house and you want to make it with something else, like rum.
Like rum. So related to the Moscow Mule, ginger beer, and in particular Gosling's rum. What do we call that, Ryan?
We call that a dark and stormy.
Absolutely. And all they did was take out the vodka and replace Gosling's rum. And so what we always like to say is, when I first start talking to people and they want to start creating their own cocktails and their own variations, I always say, follow the recipe and just switch out the spirit.
One of my favorite mules is a whiskey mule or a bourbon mule, because I'm a bourbon guy, and mules are one of my favorite cocktails to order at a restaurant. They're really simple, but they're always extremely refreshing, and they tend to cleanse my palate if I'm eating, between an appetizer and a main course.
I'm glad you brought up bourbon, because mango is a tropical fruit, and people don't understand sometimes is that bourbon goes really, really well with all types of tropical fruits. Passion fruit, mango, allspice, pineapple especially. So, no, it's a good call. Bourbon, thank you. My pleasure.
All right, the third recipe is going to be the Sparkling Mocktail Mule. We always like to give you guys a non-alcoholic version of something, just for those that either don't want to drink or don't like to drink at all.
Or they're extending the dry January.
That too.
That's yeah.
For maybe longer than 2023. So in this kit, we're using Hibiscus ginger beer with the ginger ale. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's going to be nice and spicy. When we're dealing with non-alcoholic drinks, a lot of times when we're tasting them, we're missing something. And what we're missing is the heat of the alcohol. With the spice in the hibiscus ginger beer and in the ginger syrup, going to be plenty of spice to give you that little bit of burn you're looking for when you're normally drinking a regular alcohol cocktail.
Hey Eddie, what's the difference between a Sasquatch and a Yeti?
I have no idea.
One lives in a rainy, hot climate, and the other, a little cooler. I told my friend to stop stealing my copper mule mugs, yet he still does.
Looks like it came in at the right time.
That's right, brother. Made you mule.
Let's see what you got here. What do they say in Russian?
Na zdrowie.
Na zdrowie. Here's to drinking outside the box.
Cheers.
Not bad.